Again, thank you for joining the AAN Trainee and Faculty Networking webinar series. Today's topic is how to make the best of mentor-mentee relationship. I'm pleased to introduce our panel members for today. Our moderator is Dr. Aravamuthan. Dr. Aravamuthan is an assistant professor of neurology and pediatric movement disorder specialist, specializing in cerebral palsy at Washington University School of Medicine and St. Louis Children's Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri. Our panelists are Dr. Kissela, Dr. Chitnis, and Dr. Riad. Dr. Kissela is a professor and Albert Barnes Voorhees Chair of the Department of Neurology and Rehabilitation Medicine. He is also co-director of the Stroke Recovery Center at Drake. Dr. Chitnis is professor of neurology at UT Southwestern Medical Center in Dallas, Texas. She has been involved in the care of patients with movement disorders as well as an educator in the field. And Dr. Riad is a neurointensivist and vascular neurologist. Dr. Riad is currently the program director for the NCC Fellowship at Henry Ford Hospital. Dr. Aravamuthan, I will turn it over to you.
Thanks so much for that intro, Allison, and thanks to all of our wonderful panelists for joining us today and for everybody in attendance. This is a hot topic throughout our careers, so I'm really excited to talk about it today. Can I start by asking our panelists to define what it is we're talking about? What does a mentor-mentee relationship mean to you, and what do you think makes it successful? And let me start with Riad, and then we'll move around my screen.
Thanks, Bhooma. So what I think when you tell me about a mentor-mentee relationship, first of all, I think it's a long-term relationship. It's a relationship that you sometimes don't even know or don't even label as mentor-mentee, but you end up having this connection, whether you're the mentor with the mentee or the opposite. So it doesn't have to be necessarily labeled. Sometimes you do, and it's a relationship of trust. It's a relationship where you really put yourself out there, available to guide and to sort of lead the way for the future generation, and also very importantly, to me at least, it's a bi-directional relationship where you learn from the mentee, and obviously the mentee is learning from you as well. You're trying to sort of with your experience, you're trying to show a way and get as much as possible advice that you think is going to be useful. You have to make yourself very available to the mentee, but the mentee is the one who usually will sort of have to get pretty self-motivated in order to reach out and seek that guidance and that advice.
Shilpa, you are showing your commitment to this topic by doing this in transit. What do you think about what the mentor-mentee relationship is and how to make it successful?
So I agree with Riad that I think it's a bi-directional relationship, but there's many different models of a mentor-mentee relationship. A lot of times, if in a faculty development kind of thing, you can sometimes be assigned a mentee. But then there are times when the mentee kind of picks the mentor based on their interest and what they're specifically looking for. But then there is also a peer-to-peer mentorship relationship. So there's many different models of a mentor-mentee relationship. But I do agree that most of these things are made by choice. Some are assigned, and it's a really it's a relationship that's based on trust. I think that whatever that happens within the context of the mentor-mentee relationship needs to be really sacrosanct and not to be shared. Of course, the hierarchical model of the mentor-mentee, where the mentees are more experienced person. It's a person that, is is going to help out with the development of the mentee per se. So there's many different aspects to it. But the way I look at it is that, definitely the mentee, if it's a junior person, needs to definitely be more responsive, needs to, set up the meetings, needs to reach out. But most importantly, if I can say one last thing, is that really the relationship needs to be defined with very clear goals and objectives. So when you start out, what it is are you hoping to accomplish in this particular relationship? And that needs to be very well defined. And then, I think that regular meetings basically need to happen where, the mentor and the mentee meet up, quite regularly and keep up with the goals.
Okay, Brett, things to add about mentor-mentee relationship.
Sure. So two really great answers from my colleagues. I guess let me just start broadly by saying that when we do science, we know that team science is better than someone working alone, right? And when we do clinical work, we know that it's great to ask a colleague for their help and opinion. And we often formulate our differential diagnoses and our diagnoses based upon groupthink, right? And our toughest cases we bring to conferences, and we know that helps us get the best answer. And I think in some ways, this is what our mentor-mentee relationship is all about. As we go through training, we have our teachers and our program directors and those who guide us along the way, and that's just taken for granted, although those people are mentors for us. And when you graduate from your residency and your fellowship and start your career, you are just as much in need of that continued support and mentoring as you have been at every step along the way. And as you graduate from an assistant professor to an associate and a full professor, you know what? You still need mentoring, and you still benefit from having mentoring. And I'm a chair of a department, and I claim several people as my mentors to this day, because I know that when I need to talk to someone about a critical issue, I know who I can go to talk to about different things to get good, sound advice. And I know, having been a mentee, that my career has benefited every step along the way for having great mentors, people who put my needs ahead of their own and really cared deeply about my success. I think all of the characteristics that have been described by Riad and Shilpa were right on the money in terms of it's great to have some sense of what that relationship entails, and sometimes putting structure around that and expectations is really great because it avoids a letdown or disappointment. Right. I do think that it's critical to define a mentor-mentee relationship that sometimes can be involved friendship, but probably shouldn't, right? I read a great article about mentoring that said that one thing a mentor should not be is someone you count on as a friend, because a mentor has to be willing to give that tough advice sometimes, a little bit of tough love, or tell you when you're heading down the wrong path, or maybe telling you some things you don't really want to hear or that you don't see for yourself. And if a mentor can't do that, they're not helping you the way they should. And that can be really hard to separate if you have a friendship with that person. So there is a bit of distance that I think is built into that mentor-mentee relationship that's probably necessary. Although it doesn't mean you can't like each other. It just means that you have to be very careful not to be best friends, so that honesty entails. I think that's probably where I'll stop, and just I think because it gets some great answers for our first two answers, so I'll stop there.
So the kind of the interesting themes I'm hearing from you guys is that, so Riad said that the mentor-mentee relationship is bidirectional. It's not just mentor giving, mentee receiving. It has to be a two-way thing. That some structure can be helpful, goals and objectives, setting those, and both Shilpa and Brett mentioned that. And something that I want to focus on next is how these relationships are lifelong. You don't ever age out of being a mentee. And to that end, in your own mentor-mentee relationship, I'm sure there have been stumbles along the way as you've optimized these relationships. Can you tell us about sometimes when some things that you may have regretted doing as a mentor that you would go back and change in order to improve a mentor-mentee relationship, or vice versa? Some things that you did as a mentee that you think that you regret, that you think could have been detrimental to your mentor-mentee relationship? And I'll throw it out to anybody who wants to start. We don't have to keep going in a structured circle. Any juicy tidbits for us?
So I can go first if you like, because I do have an experience. So I basically was in New Orleans and Hurricane Katrina happened. And and what happened at that time is we were all trying to relocate. I had just started. I'd been 2 years or 1.5 years into being an assistant professor, and my mentor, who was also the fellowship director with whom I trained, wonderful guy, passed away a couple of years ago. But we never kind of got together as a team, and there was another faculty member. We never got together as a team to talk about what our strategy was going to be. And we basically, I did try to approach my mentor and say, what should we do, where should we go, where should we regroup? And he was an older guy. He wasn't that interested in immediately coming back to work because nothing was going on. But I was a very early career person. I certainly didn't want to be fired because of lack of initiative. And I kept asking him over and over again, and he basically didn't show any response. And finally, what happened is our neurosurgeon had some space at the hospital where we did our deep brain stimulation surgeries, and he asked myself and the other faculty member to join him, and they were going to get space. And I kept telling again, my mentor that we're getting the space, we should go. It's really great. But because it was not his idea, he didn't want to do it. I don't know. There were multiple reasons. Again, like I said, he's a wonderful guy, but don't know what happened at that time. And and at the end of the day, we ended up starting our clinic there, and that resulted in quite a bit of stress because he was very upset, and then he was saying things, and so I had to approach, unfortunately, the department chair to talk to him and let him know about this. So anyway, the situation got resolved. But what I learned from this experience is, I think communication is really the key. I think that, rather than sending emails and talking on the emails and talking, I think that it was really important to basically say, to take the bull by the horns and say, we're having a section meeting. We need to talk about this as a section, and we need to come up with a decision that is acceptable to everybody, for whatever reasons. And so I really will say, guys, that communication is really the key, but you do have to hold your ground. I think that was one of the better things I did for myself, because I couldn't imagine, driving 90 minutes to LSU in Baton Rouge, where my mentor eventually ended up going. My daughter was only literally a year and a half old. So holding your ground is also important, but clear communication, I think, is the key to success.
So I can first of all absolutely relate to what Shilpa just said. I think it's extremely important to set a clear communication, and also to make yourself pretty available, but know that there are boundaries too, right? In terms of availability, and in terms of and this is, I think, part of setting those expectations from the get-go, right? Because everybody has their lives, whether it's the mentee or the mentor, and I think it's important to set times, not only to ensure the regularity of this communication, but also to make sure that we respect each other in our professional and personal lives. The other thing that I really, and I think it was a regret from me, when I first started.
Say that, Khan.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I first started as faculty, is sometimes the fact of you don't know if you can ask for that mentorship. Sometimes you're just reticent to do it, or you think that it's asking for help or for guidance may be some sort of weakness, and sometimes you think that you're not even you don't even know if that mentorship even exists, right? And so you don't look for it, even though you absolutely need it, or you feel that you need it. And so I think it's important to put yourself out there and really ask for mentorship, and who could be good mentors, especially when you're when you start a new position. And it's not because you are transitioning from, say, fellow or resident to an attending position, that you don't need that mentorship anymore. You actually, as a matter of fact, probably needed the most at that point. And I think people sometimes are shy to ask for it, and this is where I think it's very important that the institution you go to, or the program, whether it's the residency, the fellowship, or at a faculty level, that there is this structure of mentor-mentee relationship exists. It's there for you to use it, and even assign a trainee as a mentee to a mentor might actually be very important to sort of break the ice, and make sure that people are not passing on an incredible opportunity that could be just a long-term and lifelong relationship.
I'll go. So I was stalling. It's great to go last because my colleagues are putting out some great answers, and I can just pile on at the end. But I guess a couple of maybe random thoughts. The first is that, to the points made about communication and setting expectations, a common thing now that happens in a lot of places is to have a mentee fill out a career planning document, or there's a lot of different names for what that could be, but it sort of lays out a roadmap for what that person hopes to accomplish in their next few years of their professional career, and really stipulates, directly asking about what kind of relationship they want to have with their mentor. And so the mentor would often review that. And so having a written document for some people can be quite helpful. Having said that, there's not one magic way to do this, and there's not one magical person out there to be your mentor. I think that certainly you can have more than one mentor, and you can have mentors that help you in different areas. One that might help you with life advice, one that might help you with transitions if you're moving to a new job, or that sort of thing, one that might help you with your professional development. And I think it's just important to understand for yourself what you're seeking from a mentor, and from a mentor's perspective, what you think you can realistically give to a mentee. Not everyone is in a place in their life where they are ready to be a good mentor, and not everyone is a good mentor. And you just have to accept that. And so it is something that both parties have to agree to willingly, and sort of help define that relationship. It's not a life sentence. Maybe someone's a great mentor for you, and then at some point they're not. And at that point, it's okay to go your separate ways, right? The last thing I'll say is that there's not some magical mandatory mentoring time limit that if you get your 10,000 hours, you're better at a certain skill. So, if someone comes to you as a prospective mentor and says, I want to meet for 2 hours a week for the next 3 years, that doesn't mean that it might be just as effective to meet with them occasionally in the hallway, and then meet with them once a month or once a quarter, right? Everyone has a different need for what they want in a mentoring relationship. And some people don't want a lot of guidance, but occasional directional steering. Some people need more help. And I think it's just necessary to find kind of this is a relationship, right? And so you have to find that fit where it's a win-win for both parties.
And Brett, you've just indicated about how there are, multiple mentors throughout your life, but also at the same time. And often we ask for mentorship from multiple people at once. How do you deal with, this is a question from the chat, how have you dealt with disagreement between mentors? Or if you are the mentor, how would you prefer your mentees deal with disagreement between mentors? And this may be most salient, say, when you're working on a shared project that has 2 mentors assigned to it. How do you help mediate that situation as a mentee, or is that even the mentee role?
Well, again, I'll say this. I don't know that everyone needs to have a mentor, right? And so different people have different needs. And at the end of the day, if you are a mentee, it's your life. It's your decision. It is your career. And I think you have to take ownership for that, right? I'll give you an example. So I'm a new faculty, and I'm writing my first K award, and my mentor didn't love it. Said, well, I guess you can put that in, but I don't think that's very likely to get funded. Well, I was passionate about it. Turns out it got funded. that the mentor doesn't have magical answers. Having been a mentor now to many people for many years, I don't always have the right answer. And I try and warn everyone, like, at the end of the day, please use your judgment. Do what you think is right. I'm giving you advice, which you could choose to not take, and I won't be offended. It's okay, right? This is a human endeavor. We're not going to, I don't have magical answers for you. And, you shouldn't take every word out of my mouth as the answer or a roadmap that you must follow at pain of death, or you'll fail or something. That's just not the way it works. And so I think people just understand that. And again, open communication is so critical, right? Just to be able to talk and say, I so appreciate everything that you're saying. I'm getting conflicting advice. After weighing everyone's opinion, with all due respect, I think I'm going to choose to do this. And I think, I hope you'll understand that I didn't take your advice here, and I want to continue to get your great advice, but I'm just making this decision for right or wrong. That would be there's some words you could use to help navigate what could be a politically difficult situation.
And it might seem like a mentor that doesn't respond well to not having their advice taken could be a red flag that mentor is not the right mentor for you. Is that reasonable to say?
Well, these are human interactions, and they're difficult, right? So when one party is offended, that can be sometimes a challenge, right? If that person, often in a mentee-mentor relationship, may have some leadership responsibility for you, and that's a tough one. These are difficult situations. It's good to learn how to navigate difficult relationships in your life, and this is no different. And so there's no, everyone's every situation might have nuances that you have to figure out. But again, I think, again, it's part of that expectations of a mentor and a mentee, that the mentee should feel empowered to take ownership for their career and their decisions. And a supportive mentor, I don't mind if people don't take my word for it. I want them to succeed. And, I'm not, if I'm wrong, that's so much better for them to choose the right answer.
If I can.
Sorry,
Yeah.
go ahead, Shilpa.
Go ahead.
Please.
No, you can go ahead.
No, you do.
But I think, right at the beginning of the relationship, it is important to be able to just state that that this is nothing's carved in stone. Of course, the mentee may have a certain hierarchical respect for the mentor, but I think that the mentee should also have the right to be able to tell the mentor that, ma'am or sir, this doesn't work for me. Like, these are the reasons why it doesn't work for me. Can we, go with it in a particular direction? So I think that flexibility, I think, is really important as a mentor, because you have to remember that when you're a mentor, it's not about you, it's really about the mentee. Because, although you are learning and you are growing, right, and you are acquiring good skill sets through your experience, but still, I think it's important to remember that it is about the career development of the mentee. So it is important to let the mentee be the driver rather than the mentor be the driver.
Yeah. And I would just wanted to also sort of support what Brett was saying. Mentor, the closest figure to a mentor is probably mother and father, right? I mean, you don't always agree with them on absolutely everything, but that there's some wisdom, right? And hopefully some guidance that is meant to lead the path and to maybe a better future. You don't always have to agree with your parents, and so you don't have to agree with your mentor. And the fact that we're all humans, and we're prone to making errors sometimes, or sometimes misjudgments. Hopefully it doesn't happen very often, but it certainly has, and will keep occurring. And I think you have to have enough humility to accept that, and to be able to move on.
So how, I feel like we're talking about this topic because it's important. We're talking about things that work, things that don't work. I feel like you start training, everybody talks about good mentor-mentee relationships. You think, oh gosh, I have to find a mentor. So what does that mean? How do you find a good mentor? And secondarily to that, Brett mentioned K awards, where you formally say, these are my primary mentors. It's a formalized thing, explicit. How do you do that outside of a K award? When you want to find a clinical training mentor, do you use the word? Do you use the career development kind of written expectation sheet type style to make it a formal relationship? How do you find a good mentor, and how do you formalize that relationship?
So I'll take this one. So I belong to the Neurocritical Care Society, and we actually have started a pretty solid mentorship program. And what's really nice about it, the way it really started, is first of all you have to volunteer for it, right? So it's you're not going to be assigned, like you have to do it, right? And then in filling that survey or that questionnaire, we were actually asked about what are the things that you're willing to mentor about, right? Because I think Shilpa was saying this initially. Mentorship is can take on so many different flavors, right? It can be career development, it can be research projects, it can be it can be, for instance, how to navigate being a minority in medicine, so it can take on so many different aspects. And I think defining, first of all, what sort of mentorship you're looking for, I think is the first step to looking for a mentor.
Well, if I can say, I think you really need to define what areas you need guidance in, right? Because when you're reaching out to the mentor, you are looking out for guidance. So, and again, as a faculty member, and I'm in academics, and we're all in academics. So, there's clinical care, there's research, there's education, and then there is administration and leadership roles. Those are really the four main pillars, right? So, and I think as faculty members, we do different percentages of all of these roles at different times in our career. So one really has to decide, where do you need the most guidance? And of course, so your area of interest, of course, sometimes section heads can be mentors, but if you're really looking for, somebody that is outside of your section or even outside of your department, you really need to do a lot of research. You really need to find out what they do. But I also think that it's not a bad idea to do an interview. You can have a short mentorship relationship where you can reach out to somebody and say, hey, I want to come talk to you. I want to tap your brain about these things, right? And you don't have to commit. It's almost like dating. Your first date is not necessarily the person you marry. So I think it's not a bad idea to start with that expectation is I want to just tap your brain. I want to talk to you about different things, and then maybe even talk to different people. And then at the end of the day, after you've spoken to 3, 4, 5 people, then you get a really good sense for, the person number 3 was the best fit for everything that I need. So I don't think it's such a bad idea to interview people. And if you are really honest about it and say, I want to tap your brain without committing to the relationship, I think people have done that with me, and I consider that to be perfectly fine.
Yeah, maybe I'll just throw it again that, throughout our life, there's times when you need to work in groups and there's times when you need to work alone, right? And so we do know that there's some real science behind groupthink and how that can be better in terms of, getting a diversity of opinions usually leads to a better answer. Working in teams for science works better than one person trying to have a magical idea. So there are times when it's really great to have a mentor, but it's impractical to do everything in groups because it's just not practical. And so, I think just as a statement, I will say that not this desire for everyone, when we hear that mentoring is good, you're thinking, not only do I need a mentor, I need more mentoring. And, where do you draw the line? It's not an hour a week, maybe it's 5 hours a week. You get a lot of mentoring and it wouldn't necessarily help you. At the end of the day, there's no excuse for making sound decisions, using your good judgment, working hard, and taking time to have your own plan. What comes in handy as a mentor who can give you what you need when you need it, right? Otherwise, it's actually a waste of time to some extent, right? You want to be able to know when to ask for help, and you want someone who can be there to give it to you in the way that you need it, right? That's the perfect mentoring relationship. And when that mentor has no self-interest and that they're really doing it truly because they want to help you, right? And it's a generosity that brings great personal and professional satisfaction. So I think that's what you're seeking in a mentor, and that's what you're trying to find. And I was thinking of it when Shilpa was talking, almost like a game show, right? What is that with the bachelors, right? They ask the bachelor questions and then go on a date. It's what it sounded like. I'm not mean to be joking about it, but it's a good it's a good strategy. You want to try and find the person who can fit what you need, right? You don't want to, again, life's short and time is your greatest asset, right? And so you want to try and find someone who can give you the right amount of mentoring at the right time.
Right, and in that vein, Brad, this is how also mentor, is different from like a coach, right? I mean, a coach is someone who, it's a very structured. You have like goals. You're going to you need to attain those goals maybe in a certain period of time. Mentoring is different. It's not coaching.
But the point I was trying to make is that I agree with you, Rod. That's very well said, right? And hopefully your supervisor is a great coach, right? And has goals for you and holds you accountable that you can mutually agree upon. That's the best relationship in terms of your professional situation. I guess what I'm saying is that I don't think our trainees who are our colleagues of tomorrow need to feel like they're somehow missing out if they don't have X amount of mentoring from X amount of people. It depends upon the situation, who you are.
I like what Shilpa said about a needs assessment, kind of figuring out what you need guidance on and seeking mentors that fulfill those specific needs. But I will say that being able to do a personal needs assessment sometimes requires a mentor to help you with that, because then you have to kind of establish a vision, establish a career trajectory. And I think a lot of people come into training a little bit undifferentiated and as we would expect, and they're unsure of what their needs are because they're unsure where they're going to go in their career. I mean, to that end, when I think about finding a mentor, I think, what aspect of this person would I like to be 10 years from now? And let me have a mentor for research. I would like to be this aspect of them 10 years from now. I would like to be for career development, this aspect of this person 10 years from now. But that means I need to know who I'm going to be 10 years from now, who I want to be. So do you guys have an idea for how to find, I guess, that sort of the mentor to help you differentiate when you start out undifferentiated? Do you have ideal traits for that kind of mentor?
So if I can say something, Bhooma, is one of the things, so I'm the director of the faculty mentoring program for the Department of Neurology. I work with the department chair in mentoring faculty. So one of the things that we've done is that every new faculty member that joins basically, gets to meet with a fairly, a decent group of people, and they meet up with me as well. And so when they meet up with me, that's I think their first step in kind of starting the mentoring process. Is I talk to them about what floats their boat. What do you like? I mean, what do you want to be? I'm like, what do you want Bhooma to be known for in 10 years from now? And then somebody says, wow, I want to be really, I want to be a clinical trialist, or, I want to be like, somebody wants to write a cake grant, or I just want to be a really astute clinician and I want to probably be a program director or a fellowship director. So I elicit, sometimes, like you say, people do not know what they want to be, right? And so I give them a little overview of what, I have Abhi knows this, and I'm happy to share this with anybody. I'm happy to share the PDF. I did a mentoring talk for AA and similar talk for the Parkinson's study group, which I talked really about different areas of an academic job, what all is there. So it was like, here's your, buffet, and it's a really large buffet. Now you get to pick and choose what you want. So I really do. And then I tell them, go talk to this person. Like I'll say, oh, you know what? Oh, you're interested in neurocritical care. Well, why don't you go talk to Riad and tap his brain? Or if you're, interested in something like movement disorders, go talk to Abhi. So I do connect the people with a number of different people. And so once they've talked to all of these people, they've kind of, it's like, what I did for my PhD program, I had to talk to every single faculty member in the department and learn their science and learn their field, and then make my own decision. So I think it is okay to be slow in starting out to define what your needs are. And it is okay in the first year. It's almost like, just take it all in. There's so much out there. I don't think you can make a decision about really where my life is going or where my career is going. So in the first year, it's just good to learn the skill sets, learn, for example, Epic, right? Learn to be really good at Epic, learn to give, really good lectures, learn to basically just learn the geography of the land. And then after you've done that, now I will say one last word is the section chief, if you have a good section chief, they can be a really good mentor as well. So, definitely talking to the section chief, talking to, if there is a faculty development vice chair or faculty development director, talking to them helps out.
I think I'll pile on that last piece. So as a chair, here's some good news for y'all out there. Whoever your boss is, they actually want you to succeed and be happy. The last thing we want to do is for you to quit and go somewhere else. And it's not productive. I want to hire someone and hire them for their whole career, because it's a great job when they take it. It's a great job on the day they retire at age 65 or whatever they're going to retire at. And I think as a leader, it's my job to help them find their satisfaction, their happiness in their work, right? And so I think all of your bosses are like that, and that they truly are motivated to help you succeed. Occasionally that goes wrong. We're humans, but that's certainly, I think, for the vast majority of people, the intent. And I love the discussion about not taking some time to figure out what you want. Not everyone knows, from the day they graduate high school, what their professional achievements are going to be. And sometimes, you have to take opportunities as they arise, right? And so I do think sometimes we're a little guilty of saying, you have to focus, you need to know your answer, figure it out today, and then focus. And, my career has involved a lot of wandering and taking opportunities that came to me that weren't necessarily what I planned on, and yet turned out to be things that were fantastic for me. And when I wasn't sure, I had people I could go to kind of help, at least talk me through it. Sometimes a great mentor doesn't tell you anything. They just listen. And if they listen carefully, you'll probably figure it out, right? And so that's just, some characteristics in my mind of a good mentor.
Yeah, I would say there's really, no cookbook really for finding a mentor. But it's a lot of feelings sometimes, and it's a lot of just like Brett and Shilpa were saying, just sometimes a lot of wandering until you find at the right time the person that really fits your needs, and that person can change over time, and that relationship can come to an end at some point, or last for forever, as many people have had really relationships like that, and I think this platform right now today of this trainee and mentorship, it is somehow also some form of awareness campaign, that there are those possibilities, and for some people, and I know this because I interact with residents who before we started a mentorship program here, didn't know that this was even something that they could ask for, and I think that's really important to be aware that you can and you should be able to find someone, but there's really not going to be an exact recipe for it. It's really a sort of a personal journey.
I got to jump in. I'm incapable of having a talk like this and not somehow boosting the AAN. Full disclosure, I sit on the board, so I don't want this to be like a commercial. But what's great about neurology is that we're mostly a specialty of nice people, right? There's a desperate need for more of us. We genuinely care about educating our own and growing our own and pushing our profession forward, right? And so the ability to network throughout our Academy of Neurology, throughout other professional societies like the Neurocritical Care Society Riad mentioned. These are great opportunities to find people who can serve as friends, colleagues, and mentors for people. And so it doesn't have to be someone who lives on your block or who you see every day in the office. That could be some of the most meaningful mentors for you. And it might be someone you talk to once a year at a national meeting, but you do it over your entire career, and that becomes one of your deepest and most successful relationships that means the most to you professionally.
That is so true.
Do
so
take
true.
advantage of the Academy. It's a fantastic organization and worth taking advantage of.
That segues really nicely to a question in the chat, actually, which is about how to find a mentor outside of your own institution. So this concept of leveraging national organizations seems to be a way to do that. Do you think that's fair?
I think it worked beautifully for me, for instance, because, you know, I got involved in this, you know, NCS mentorship program, and I have a wonderful mentee, and she knows herself, and we do the long distance relationship kind of, you know, and it's incredible because, you know, we were essentially, you know, matched, quote unquote matched, you know, based on our, you know, mutual interests. And I've actually had, you know, I think one of the most meaningful, you know, mentor-mentee relationship I've ever had. So I think these initiatives are incredible. They're extremely useful, and they sort of, you know, expand your horizons, you know, and your opportunities. You know, if you don't find your mentor, you know, intramurally, you know, you can find, you know, those people outside, you know, your four walls.
So one of the things that was very useful for me in my career, and I always belabor this, is I was made to be in charge of grand rounds for the Department of Neurology in about 2008. And that really gave me a great platform to be able to invite some very good people from across the country. Also, you know, just to again put in a plug for AAN, AAN has a program, and, you know, where you can invite the AAN president to also come and give grand rounds and talk about, you know, AAN and its mission. So I just happen to have invited a lot of people, but I also invited people in movement disorders, which was my subspecialty area. And that's how, and for that day and a half, I did nothing else, but I hosted them. I even went to the airport and I picked them up. I dropped them to their hotel. I waited until they got ready. I took them out to dinner with our group, which is what we did the evening before. I dropped them off again to their hotel, took them to breakfast the next morning, and then hosted them around for the day that they were there. And that gave me a lot of time to be able to talk. So some of the people that I really met who ended up becoming my really great mentors are Cindy Camella, Michael Oken, and Jerry Vitek. They were all invited grand round speakers. And so that was one way of me meeting them. But the AN, you know, mentorship programs, there's lots and lots of opportunity for you to meet. And being a woman, I'm going to put a plug for women. There's some very excellent, you know, women mentors who are not only excellent at what they do, but they truly believe in empowerment of women. And so these are opportunities that you really, I mean, at the end of the day, like, you know, somebody mentioned, this is your life, your job. You know, initiative is something that you have to have. Your mentors are not going to come to you and say, you know, how can I help you? I mean, you know, you have to go out there, you have to put yourself out there, you have to find people. And I will say that most people who are accomplished, you know, in their careers, they're happy to mentor. So, you know, but if you approach them with humility, you ask them the right kind of questions, you don't waste their time, they're willing to meet. I met up with Cindy Camella every year at AN for coffee for 5 years. And when she was putting together the leadership task force for MDS, she thought of me. And not only that, she thought of me as a faculty member. So, you know, you have to chase people. You don't want to, you know, you don't want to annoy people, but you have to basically engage with people.
Yeah, so don't be afraid to cold email. It's okay. The worst people can do is not respond, and then you just email them again, right? I mean, that's, what do you have to lose? If you are interested in learning from and working with someone, it doesn't, you have to start somewhere and take the initiative to do it, which is something that I think Shilpa and Riad have both suggested. And you could leverage national organizations to do that, I think, both formally and to just exist as a venue that everybody is going to be at every year so that you can set up meetings while you're there. Go ahead, Shilpa.
If I can, sorry to interrupt, Bhooma, if I can add one thing, you know, look at the AN University. Like, they have such great, you know, programs. And please look at a program and see where it would be applicable for you to apply. You know, you get a whole year of free mentorship. At the same time, you get to, you know, at the introductory lectures, you get to meet AN leadership. You get to meet presidents. You get to meet, the other thing that I will say, which is really important, and Allison's gonna laugh when I say that, is all of the the administrative staff. I think that they were just as important for my progression to lots of leadership roles within the AAN. I met Lucy Prasad when we were part of CNPD, which is the Consortium for Neurology Program Directors, and I just kept in touch with her, and I would ask her questions every so often on things that I needed, and so she remembered me, and eventually Lucy's become a director and stuff, and I was able to get in a lot of committees because I sincerely approach people with good intent, and I really wanted to do something good and volunteer my time for something good.
Yeah, I'll just, last word on this, I'll just say, don't be a stranger, right? I think, I'm a huge fan of Ted Lasso, if anyone's watching the show on Apple TV, right? And when Ted introduces people, he says, you'd all just met a cool person, right? And so if you just say hi to someone at a meeting, next thing you know, you might strike up a conversation and you might make a lifelong friend that you may only see for once a year for a cup of coffee, but that's still a great friend, right? Whether that person becomes a mentor or helps your profession, if they do, that's great. And if they don't, well, you just met a cool person, right? And you get, we're more alike than we are different. We all love neurology and we work in the same field, right? So don't be shy. Put yourself out there and say hi to people, and you'll be better off for it, I promise.
So we had spoken a little bit earlier. Riad had mentioned the difference between a mentor and a coach. And Shilpa, you talked about how Cindy Camella put you up for a leadership position in MDS and Movement Disorder Society, which sounds a lot like sponsorship to me, which is a little bit different than the definition of mentorship. Do you guys find mentors and sponsors in the same people? Do you cultivate sponsorship relationships differently from mentorship relationships, or does it just end up being a natural, let me meet someone I'd like to gain some advice from, and then these different things come over time?
So if I can start. So I think that a mentor can, definitely subserve all of these roles. I think of coach as something a little bit different, because a coach basically serves a very specific objective. Like, for example, I got an executive coach assigned to me because I was in senior leadership role and I needed to develop some skills. So I got in touch with the, with the Office of Faculty Development and Women's Affairs and asked for, can a coach be assigned to me? And they did, and I worked with the coach for a whole year. And it was really helpful because there were specific objectives that I really needed to meet, right? But a mentor can definitely serve as your sponsor, and obviously the mentor knows you best, but you still have to, every mentor may not remember that they also have sponsorship capability. There's a lot of mentors that are great mentors but not very good sponsors. So if your mentor is high up in an organization, you need to sometimes remind them and say, can you think of some leadership roles, some voluntary things, some committee roles that I could be best suited for? Sometimes the person will say, well, what are you interested? Why don't you go look up at the committees, and why don't you go tell me 1, 2, 3, what are you, specifically interested in? And I will, put your name up, right? So a sponsor really picks and says, cherry picks and says, this is a person like Cindy picked me. But you can have a separate sponsor. For example, I reached out to the president of the MDS many years ago and said, my name is Shilpa Chitnis. I'm just starting to get involved with the MDS. Here are some of things that I'm really interested in. And many years later, they remembered that I was interested in education, and they put me on an education committee and a CME committee. So you can have a completely, relatively unknown person that you can approach, with respect and humility, that can be your sponsor and champion also.
So don't be a stranger, according to Brett, and don't be shy, according to Shilpa, right? Make sure you ask for what you need from a mentor. And if you see a sponsorship opportunity, then it's okay to remind them or to ask specifically for sponsorship options.
And it's okay for the mentor to say, that they don't have the ability to do that, right? And to point them in the right direction, right? So think it's important for each one of us to know their limitations and be as helpful as possible, but as truthful too, right? And sometimes, you know, we can't, as mentors, fulfill all three, you know, responsibilities, right? Of being a coach, a mentor, and a sponsor. But guiding the person in the mentee, you know, in the right direction is part of, you know, the things that a mentor can and I believe should do.
Yeah, I just add that I think different people serve different roles for you. Some of the things we've talked about, I'm cringing and thinking, oh my God, people are thinking I need a coach, I need a sponsor, I need a mentor. Well, who else do I need? You know, I think these different roles and different names, they are all important. I'm not trying to minimize that, but I think there's certain things that you ideally would have. You do want people to hold you accountable, right? Sometimes that really is a coach, right? That's more setting goals and holding you accountable, but a good mentor does that and a sponsor might as well. You want someone who's trying to help you, and all those roles, genuinely, I think if people are taking them on, are trying to help you in the way that you need help. It is nice to have someone looking out for you and trying to push you forward, right? Again, some of these roles sound a lot like parenting. A good parent, you know, has complete and total love for their child, wants the best for their child. We'll hold them accountable. We'll try and set rules and hold them accountable, but we'll also, you know, try and push them forward. And at the end of the day, are really trying to get their kids, you know, to the best place they can be, happy in life and successful, right? And so, you know, you have to meet people where they are. I think don't be offended if you ask someone for sponsorship and they don't. Some people don't really have time and energy for that. Some people in their lives may have things going on that you'll have no way of knowing that they can't provide what you need at that moment, or that's just not their style, or they're overloaded or whatever. I think you have to be understanding. Again, having kind of a broad network helps you because you're likely to find people who are more likely to serve those individual roles for you if it's not one person who can serve all of them.
I think it can also be helpful from a mentee sponsorship standpoint to, if you find that someone who you would like to serve as your sponsor is unable to do so at the moment, sometimes it could be because you may not be right for that particular role that you're asking for. So I think clarifying that can also be useful. And that can come directly from you. You know, if you don't think I would be right for this position right now, what things could I do to help improve my CV or improve my skill set so that you can serve to be a sponsor for me to enter this role in the future? And I think this goes back to what Shilpa was saying, to not be shy to ask for what you need. And sometimes that's guidance for, you know, how this person might be able to be a sponsor someday. We have a few minutes left. I want to make sure I get to this question from one of our attendees. If you as a mentee are moving institutions, how should you navigate that decision or that discussion with your mentor? And maybe to flesh that out a little bit, one, how do you navigate that if you want to continue the mentor-mentee relationship? And how do you navigate that if you feel like it's time to move on to a different mentor? How would you navigate it either way?
Well, I'll start. I think part of it is really finding people who are well suited to be in these roles for you as mentors, right? If you find yourself a good mentor and a good sponsor, what they want at the end of the day is the best for you. Sometimes the best for you is not continuing to work here with me, right? And I have to be okay with that. If you have the right person, you'll often be surprised. You're terrified of that conversation, but when you bring it up to like, oh my God, what can I do to help you? Of course, I'm not going to abandon you if you leave this institution or if you make a change or whatever. You just be honest. The truth will set us free, right? So it's never wrong to tell the truth and say what's in your heart. And if that person then reacts badly, then that probably wasn't the right person for you in the first place, or their role may be over, and that's okay, right? And you can find new mentors in the new place. Again, it's a human interaction, right? Sometimes you'll have an awkward and painful discussion that will heal itself over time, right? So don't give up on people either. But, I think you just have to do what's right for you and be open and honest about it. Transparency is very, very helpful.
As a matter of fact, I feel like most of my mentors are not actually in my institution anymore. I've moved on and I've kept those relationships. And I don't think it's really institution dependent, right? That mentorship, relationship. You move on and you keep your mentors. And I stay in touch with Jim Grotta, from UT Houston, used to be my my mentor, or Ricardo Carapoma at Hopkins. These are or Panos Varelas. These are people who are no longer in the same place, or I'm no longer in the same places as they are, and I my relationship has not tarnished because of distance, right? So
I think Zoom makes that easier. I feel like I've seen some people who are outside of my institution more frequently than I've seen people who are inside my institution over the last year and a half. And I think leveraging those technologies can make interinstitutional relationships easier as well.
There's no reason for the mentor-mentee relationship to end if it's going well. And, when I left LSU and after, initial teething problems were resolved, Dr. Rao and I ended up becoming really great friends. And I think he really looked at my career with great pride. And, I would call him every couple of weeks to just chat with him and tell him what I was doing. And I think he really vicariously enjoyed, living his life through my career all over again. And so until the time that he passed away 2 years ago, we still remained, for 15 years, I've been gone from LSU, but he remained a great mentor, great friend. And so it's quite possible to maintain that relationship if you have a good one.
So in our last remaining minutes, we've talked quite a bit about, I think, primarily advice for mentees. As I'm sure there are many junior faculty who are going to be watching this, and this may be the first time that we are starting to create our own mentor-mentee relationships where we're the formal mentor. How do you navigate noting that time is a limited resource and there's only so many mentees that you can take on? How do you navigate finding the mentees that you think will be a right fit for you to mentor? If you have multiple options, what are the things you're looking for in a mentee?
So if I can just say one thing, I generally don't say no to anybody. If somebody approaches me with questions, I generally don't say no to anybody. I have some, sometimes I'll say, you know what, I'm driving home from this time to this time. I'm more than happy to talk to you on the phone. Call me on the phone. I leave at around 5:30, text me, and I'll just talk to you on the phone. So, I have 5 days a week times 2. Those are my 10, 45-minute time frames when I actually, I'm not doing anything. I'm driving, like I was talking to you guys. So I generally don't say no to anybody, but to formally take on someone, I think that's a bigger, larger commitment. And so that you have to really set your time and decide how much bandwidth you have. Because the thing is that you don't want to be a bad mentor. If you take on too many mentees and then you're not going to have time for them, it doesn't work out. You have, as maybe Riad mentioned, being available and being responsive is very important as a mentor. So can't take on too many.
I couldn't agree more with Shilpa. You really want to be good at what you're doing, right? And you really want to serve that purpose, right? So full on, mentorship, it might not be possible to take on, 10 mentees, at a time, right? But also, as we were saying before, there are different levels of mentorship, and it might not be the same for every kind of relationship, right? So some of them might be heavier sort of commitment, and others less so.
Yeah, I think it's just important to be honest. If you're a mentor and you say, look, if what you're looking for is a weekly meeting for an hour, can't do it. I don't have that amount of time. I just can't. If you want to meet once a quarter or once every 6 months, that I can do, and I'd be happy to give you that time. Or we could do an occasional phone call here and there, but I can't schedule a regular time for you. If you're just honest with your possible mentee about what you can give realistically, that sets up the right kind of relationship where there's not dashed expectations.
Great. I think this is a great kind of summary note to wrap up on. So things some key features of what our great panelists have said are setting clear expectations on both sides, knowing what you're asking for, knowing what role you want your mentor to fill as a mentee, and as a mentor, being very clear about what you're able to give and what you're not able to give. And that way, if you do all of those things up front, a few of the things that can set you up for success in your mentor-mentee relationship. Okay, so let's keep going with the selecting mentee theme as we enter the last half an hour of this webinar. So something that I've had some trouble with personally as I'm entering in, I'm starting my lab now, I'm hiring people. You have multiple people that are applying for a position or multiple people that are interested in working with you in the lab and seeking you out as a mentor. And how do you, and you can't take all of them on, right? You, as people that are directly contributing to your lab or to your research project, what are the kind of questions that you might ask or kind of things that you might expect for a potential mentee to say when you try and vet who you think is going to be a good fit for your research program or to take on as a mentee as a long-term sort of commitment?
Well, I think if you have limited resources, you have to figure out how to use them wisely, right? And so if someone sends you a note and says, hey, I would like to come work with you or be your mentee, I think it's important to really think about what the implications are for that and be prepared to discuss those openly and honestly with that person, and to be prepared to say no, right? We have a hard time being mean, right? We're like the nicest specialty in the world. So we are more likely to say yes just because we're awkwardly afraid of saying no. And we have to be honest and realistic or it's not going to work out for both parties. If someone should come up to you in the hallway and sort of blindside you, you don't need to feel guilted into just saying yes as a reflex. I think you can say things like, you know, that's an important question. I'd like to think about it a little bit before I tell you that I can serve as a good mentor for you. And that gives you an opportunity to really think through. Maybe there are some questions you'd like to probe that individual to figure out if this is someone who is really going to be someone you feel like is going to be a good fit for you to be their mentor and them to be the mentee.
I am wondering, I guess, specifically about if you have a range of mentees that you might take on, what are the things that you might be able to do to figure out who might be the best fit for you personally? So what sort of questions might you ask, or what sort of tactics might you employ to figure out who you might gel with well in terms of a mentor-mentee relationship?
So it's an interesting question. I don't think I usually think about it this way because I always feel like the mentee, reaches out to the mentor. Even though, yes, this is a bi-directional, relationship, but usually the mentee, approaches you because they see something, right, in you that you can help with or provide, as a resource. I don't think it's I don't think I have ever or maybe will ever feel that there's there's not something that I can sort of that I can provide or help with, and it might not be the full gamut of what the person is asking, but there might be something that I can be helpful in, and so the relationship may be a little bit limited and not as as much as the mentee really expected, but this is where my role then comes, where I can direct them to other people. But I usually don't see it as no, I will not, I can't really mentor you. You see what I mean? I feel like there's always something you can provide.
Well, I think Shilpa said it well before. It's a little bit like dating, right? So you never know if it's going to be a good fit to talk to someone. Anyone who asks me to be a mentee is going to get at least some conversation from me so that we get to know each other a little bit. And if it's not something that should be a long-term mentor-mentee relationship, either one of us can part ways and we'll part as friends. But if, if there's some discussion and getting to the point where you start to feel like, yeah, this might be someone who I could really help in a long-term way, and the mentee feels like, hey, that's a good fit, this person could be a good mentor, then you need to talk about the expectations, because even if you feel like you have a lot to offer each other at a bidirectional mentor-mentee relationship, it still may not be logistically feasible. And I think you just have to think about those sort of hierarchies of, is it possible for this to be a good fit?
We spoke a little bit earlier about establishing that, I think this was Brett specifically that spoke about this, establishing a mentor-mentee relationship as a relationship where the mentor is able to give hard advice, where it's not necessarily a best friends kind of relationship. Is it, do you feel it's difficult, or has it ever been difficult to do that with people that are at a comparable or close to the same career stage as you? How do you have mentors and mentees that are, or do you have mentors and mentees that are peers in some ways that you're still able to establish a mentor-mentee relationship with, and how do you navigate that?
I think absolutely. I think I actually wanted to mention that we usually typically think of the mentor-mentee relationship as like the seniority, right? There has to be some sort of age gap, and but it doesn't have to be at all. And I can definitely think of a couple of people, Avi being one of them, actually, who provides this mentorship in different ways. And I think I'm even probably older than that. So it's not a seniority based thing, and sometimes, yes, it can become a bit of an issue when there's too much sort of proximity, and this is something that Brett was actually said very eloquently, that your mentor, in order for it to be extreme, very successful, there should be some sort of distance, right? But it doesn't mean and doesn't negate the fact that you can have a mentor that's a peer, or that sort of is in the same stage in your career.
Shilpa, you're muted.
Yeah. So I can definitely attest to that. When I became associate residency director and Stephen, became the residency director, he had just become associate professor, and I was about 3.5 years into being assistant professor. So I kind of didn't look at him more as and he's in the same age group as I am. So I think he really became very good. Sorry, I got cut off. I found other friends in the department that we served as peer mentors for each other, and I feel like even the movement is out of society, I have people that are peer mentors. The peer mentor relationships are an absolute must, because when you see somebody that is on the same trajectory as you are, and then you learn from each other's successes, but you also learn from each other's mistakes.
Yeah, I'll just chime in and say that I think I might be the oldest one on this panel, and there's something to be learned from everyone. So being old and having gray hair or a lack of hair does not make you smarter than anyone else, and there's plenty to learn from everyone. And so age isn't the defining factor, right? The other thing is, these are fluid human relationships. My original mentor was my original chair. Turns out now I'm his chair. But it doesn't matter, I still go to him at times, and I treat him like almost a father figure to me. And yet I consider him more of a friend than a mentor at this stage in my life. And you know what? If you gave me a choice, I'd rather have a friend than a mentor. So, friendships in life are more important than your job. Don't forget that one. But, I think your relationships can change and evolve, and you don't want to, it doesn't have to be so rigidly formal that it's fixed in stone forever.
How have you all navigated mentorships that may be entirely virtual? And I say this, I mean, in the pandemic era, but also with regards to mentors being of any age. The people younger than us are much more well-versed in social media than we may be. There are a lot of professional groups that are only available on Facebook or that are easily accessible through Twitter. Do you feel like there are virtual mentors that kind of just stay in the virtual space? Do any of you have those, and how do you navigate those relationships?
Yeah, I currently have an all virtual, mentoring relationship. I mean, we're both, I think, pretty comfortable with the technology, and it's been actually wonderful because it allows for great flexibility and availability as well. But I think it's and I think you can maintain a relationship, virtual. I think we're starting to to explore this. I guess we're probably one of the the first generation to really see how this is going to pan out in the future. But I think it's also important to try to make it a point, maybe at conferences, to meet up. My mentee, who I see virtually, we will be meeting at the next conference at NCS, and I think it's absolutely doable, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, there's no right answer for this, I guess. Again, maybe having the grayest hair here, don't expect me to mentor you on Twitter. I can't do it. Nope, can't do it. But this is a human interaction, right? I mean, we found ways even before we had video conferencing to be able to have relationships and friendships that transcend geography, right? And so, to that end, it's amazing how much we can learn. I didn't know Shilpa and Riad and Bhooma before this conference, and I feel like I'm getting to know you very well as we're having this prolonged discussion. And part of this is a human relationship. We just said you don't have to be best friends, and you probably shouldn't be to get the kind of really hardcore professional mentoring that you might need. At the same time, I would never want to mentor someone and not really get to know them deeply as a person, right? I care about their personal life and, their relationships with family and friends and what's going on in their life, because it matters to your professional success as well, right? I mean, part of being a mentor is caring about someone's well-being, not just whether they advanced to promotion or got a grant or, became full partner in the practice or whatever. It's really more about the person, right? And so, I think we're learning how much one can get from a virtual conference, although for a lot of people, this just won't cut it, right? Everyone's different. Some people are more introverted and love this lack of face-to-face time. And some people who are more extroverted just can't stand this and need to sit with someone in a room and look them in the face in 3 dimensions, or it's not going to be meaningful. And you have to accept that people are different and need different levels of human contact.
So I'll add to thank you guys. These are really great comments. I agree. I think that it has worked out. The Zoom or Teams mentorship things have worked out, and technology has been really great. So it's not been that much of a problem. I just wanted to say one last word about the fact that a couple of my mentees have now, as over time, really ended up becoming my really close friends. And so one of the things that, and it wasn't like Brett said, I mean, these are human relationships. You sit alongside somebody and you're seeing patients and you're sitting and doing DBS programming. And it's really hard, especially for a person like me. I'm quite friendly, and I don't know that I'm extroverted, but I'm definitely quite outgoing. So I basically, have to ask, on a Monday, I hope you had a good weekend, or things like that. And over the years, you end up becoming, good friends. But I think I've tried to do a good job of the work hat and the friend hat. So, there are times when I have to say, okay, now I'm going to wear my work hat. All right. And so that way they know that we're talking at a different level, as opposed to, I'm going to take the work off hat and now I'm going to talk at the friend hat. So I think it's doable. You have to be really disciplined to, at least but I think it only works out when both sides have the maturity to recognize the distinction between the work and the friend hat.
Yeah, I didn't mean to ever say that you can't be friendly with mentors. I hope I wasn't, I wasn't
No, no, no,
misinterpreted, but
no,
I,
not
you
at
know,
all, not at all.
some people have the capacity to be friends and still be able to give hard advice, and people have the capacity to be friends and can take that hard advice, and then some people can't, right? And there's nothing worse than watching people who are mentor-mentee then become friends and then have some kind of falling out and literally don't like each other anymore and are stuck working together. That's really painful to watch. And so I think there's just having some boundaries can be helpful. But again, I'll say it, if I could choose between a mentor and a friend, I'd take a friend every day.
You've all talked about structured mentorship programs, both through the AAN and other societies. How do you take advantage of those structured programs? So as a mentor, you can volunteer. As a mentee, you can ask to be a part of it. But then after the pairing, it's kind of on you, right? How do you keep those relationships going?
For instance, because I only have so far one, experience with that. We talk about, we sort of structure it like talking about career planning. At some point, like we make it a point, to discuss this. The society was also sort of, recommending that, if there is a mutual interest in discussing, research projects, or maybe writing, a chapter or say like a review article or something, or even, doing some research together, it might be a good idea. And so we sort of try to structure it this, like we're going to focus on, part of our discussion, or maybe this session, on career planning or career development. And, next time we'll talk about, our research project, so this is, my example so far.
Yeah, maybe I'll go and say that everyone's kind of a different learner in the way they try and learn things and plan things, right? I would advise that people, I said career development plan, I was thinking of individual development plan. If everyone ought to spend the time to at least download one and read all the questions and figure out what it is you're looking for. And if you go through the exercise of writing one, they're usually pretty lengthy. That there's a lot of questions, a lot of blanks to fill in, and you got to really think about it. It's a hard exercise, but if that's what it takes to get you to understand what you need as a mentee, I think that's really critical. And there's a part of almost all of those where a mentor then has to sort of respond and react to them. And, that's a really good vehicle for, but I think this journey of self-exploration is probably really critical, right? I think that way a mentee comes to a relationship knowing what that is they're looking for. And then, I think it can be hard. Sometimes you get matched through these algorithms and it's not a great match. And it's okay to say that. And it's okay for either party to say that. Again, life is short, and I think people need to use their time wisely and be efficient. And if it's not a great thing, either party should step out for the greater good of both parties.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, sorry, I wasn't sure if you wanted to say something, but then I heard you. Couldn't agree more. Perfect. In relationships where you feel like it's one-sided, so maybe the mentee feels like they're putting in a lot of effort, or the mentor feels like they're trying to drag something out of the mentee, how do you remediate? How do you approach remediating that relationship? Or at what point do you say, you know what, I think this isn't working out? I think Shilpa gave us an example of that at the very beginning in the setting of Katrina. How have you guys navigated relationships like
that? I don't know. I think like, Brad and Shilpa, said earlier, honesty is really, and transparency is really the pillar of this relationship. And if you cannot be transparent, if you cannot be upfront with your mentee, you're not doing them a favor at all. And sometimes those hard discussions need to take place, And if you're feeling like, this is, like you said, one-sided, there should be enough, motivation and courage to actually, have this conversation, and then, as two adult, mature, people, resolve that, that issue, whether it's, parting ways, or just have to readjust, this human interaction.
Yeah, again, just to say it again, I don't think everyone needs a mentor. And if you're actually suffering from the relationship you're trying to have, or it's not working out, if a friend of mine says, I'm dating someone, but it's killing me, it's a terrible relationship, I'm not getting what I need from this emotionally, I would say, break up with them. What are you talking about? Life is short, there's other fish in the sea. And this is not much different. I think it should not be something that has to cause tremendous amount of effort on both sides. When it works well, it feels great to everybody, right? People feel like they're satisfied with the relationship. It's professionally valuable for both parties. And I think if you don't have that, it may be time to move on, or at least because sometimes it's hard to have those honest discussions. If you can't have the honest discussion, to have the hard one to say, I don't think this is working out. What do you think? If you're not, let's say that, you could always just find someone else, and it's going to be okay.
So now, as we're officially wrapping up, as we hit 7:30 Central Time, what do you think are some key takeaways for the listeners of this webinar to think about when they're looking at their own mentor-mentee relationships? What are things that you wish you had known years ago when you were trying to find your own mentors, or when you were taking on mentees for the first time?
Don't be shy. That is number one. Seriously, I mean it, because that was the biggest regret. Am I going to bother someone? Am I going to be just, am I asking too much, right? And so I think I passed on, for many years, the opportunity of finding someone, that could be a mentor. And especially, I want to say also, I think it's really important. And, when you transition from one stage to the other, mentorship is important. It's not because you're putting on your hat, of you became an attending, that, asking for that mentorship is, not acceptable, right? Or finding a new mentor, So I think really, number one, don't be shy.
If I can add, I'll say if you're not, I came from a very small university, and there were only 2 faculty members. And if you feel like you're not getting the right kind of mentorship from your department, your section, or university, you have to go out there and look for mentors outside.
Mm-hmm.
So I agree with Riad that I don't think you can get through an academic career without mentorship. So if you're not getting within your home, step out. I mean, outside is in leadership training, one of the things they teach us is outside. Exercise outside, look outside of your, get out of, you can't be in silos, you've got to get out.
Yeah, I would just say find your person, right? This is true in your life. I think you find your friends, you find your life partners, you find the people that make you better, right? And that make you happy. That's great for your personal life, and it's great for your professional life as well. You find people, and it may be 1 or 2 people, it might be a whole horde of people that you surround yourself with for various reasons that make you a better person, make you more successful, make you feel better about your professional trajectory. Find those people, cultivate them. It's worth the effort, and let it happen naturally.
And if I could add to that, something that Shilpa alluded to earlier was that it was okay to take time. I think that you start out thinking you have to find mentors right away, and more mentors better. And that's what Brett was talking about too earlier. It's not so much that finding a mentor is the goal, but it's finding the right people to achieve your goals. And if it takes time to figure out what your goals are, then it's okay to take that time first before you're rushing to find the mentors to help you achieve those goals. You've all talked about mentorship as being a key aspect of your professional development historically and ongoing. And you've all talked about how the AAN has helped fill some of those roles. As our last question, can you talk about how the AAN has helped foster mentorship for you, and examples of how you've been able to become a mentor through the AAN as well.
So if I can start, so I met Dr. Johnston, Karen Johnston, who was the chair at UEA. I literally ran into her at one of the AAN things, programs, and we were, I think, meeting in a coffee line, and then we just kind of started talking, and then the next thing, 10 minutes later, I was in one of those leadership things, and she was leading it, and so she recognized me, and so we started kind of talking and developed a chemistry, and she, basically said to me, happy to meet up with you. So again, just like Dr. Kamala, I met up with Karen Johnston a lot as well, and she provided me with a lot of good mentorship. I've participated in a number of mentorship activities that are officially by AAN. One of the ones that I really enjoyed was the mentor-director relationship. So Lucy, and team created this thing where program directors, new program directors, young program directors in their careers, were teamed with more seasoned program directors. And that's something that I truly enjoyed. The mentor that I had was delightful. That's one of the examples you were talking about, how do you foster good relationships on Zoom? I literally met up with Mitesh Lothia one time at an AAN, but we talked a lot during the year that he was my mentee, and really, kind of ended up becoming really good friends as well. So, there are so many of these programs at AAN that people should really look for. Go to AAN.com, navigate the whole, keep looking at different things, spend a couple of hours. There's so many resources. I mean, it's amazing the number of resources that AAN has.
The AAN's a professional network, and it's really, network is the key word there, right? It's a chance to meet other people. Again, you would be shocked if you don't already know it to get the grasp of how much we want others to succeed as a profession. We're just genuinely across the board. I feel like as I meet more and more neurologists around the country, around the world, we're a relatively small group. We genuinely care about our profession. We generally care about the next generation and succeeding. We're sort of born educators, and we care about people rising up to the next level and keeping our profession strong. So if you look around, some people are incapable of turning it off. Karen Johnston is a great example. She can't not mentor you if you talk to her for more than 30 seconds. But some people are like that, and that's great. That's the great thing about being a neurologist. And the AAN is just a way to bring us together, right? So there's lots of ways to get involved, and most people that participate in AAN activities find it incredibly professionally satisfying, and really value being a member of the academy. And the academy, speaking for the organization, our mission is to enhance member satisfaction and professional career development. Take advantage of the AAN and all that it has to offer.
I don't have more to add. This was very beautifully said.
I just want to make a quick plug for some of the leadership programs that the AAN offers, which come with built-in mentors. So not only are you a part of a cohort of people that are entering into that leadership program with you, who can easily become peer mentors, and many of the people I participated in a leadership program with have become peer mentors. We're on a WhatsApp chain where we ask each other questions all the time for guidance. But then you're assigned a senior mentor within the AAN to help you both navigate the AAN, navigate your career, navigate life decisions, or whatever you want that person to be. So I think I just want to echo what everyone else has said about the AAN's commitment to mentorship, as evidenced by wanting to do this webinar in the first place. So with that, I would like to thank all of my panelists again for participating in this webinar. It's been an honor to moderate this discussion. I hope it's been useful for everybody to listen to and to participate in. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you for joining the
having us.
AAN Trainee and Faculty Networking webinar series. These are recorded, and once edited, the recording will be available through AAN.com, and we will let you know when it's available. The next panel date and topic is working with industry as a neurologist in November, and look for Zoom link on AAN's social media channels. Thank you for joining us today, and good night, everyone.